Hey everyone, before this video starts, I just wanted to say I'm really sorry. I took my brand new ScopeMate cam out for this video. Now, what I didn't do, which was stupid, I got up to the range and I had been playing around with it on another scope, on another rifle. Well, what didn't I do? I didn't open up my phone and say, let's adjust the focus for the Razor Gen 3 that I have on my centerfire rifle. So I'm going to apologize up front that a lot of this video is going to be kind of blurry. But that's not what this video is about anyway, but I just wanted to apologize up front because I shot a lot of video for this video and I can't really go up and redo the whole thing. So thanks for understanding. And now to our regularly scheduled program. Hey everyone, it's the 4Gun Guy, and I'm out here at the range today. I've got a lot of videos to shoot today, so I'm going to try to get through them all. But look, this video is one I've been really thinking about for a long time. It's going to be a redo of my wind video. So I did an initial wind video, I'll post it up here somewhere, a long time ago. I mean, I think it was a few years ago actually. But with this video, I wanted to do things a little bit different. I want to actually bring the match concept into it. So what I thought we would go over today is, let's start here, right? And we've got a good wind today. It's for this stage, it's going to be kind of across us. Let's talk about what we see here, what we see down at the target. And then what I want to do is write up a dope card, right? Just like we would at a match, and with our wind brackets and stuff like that. And then let's shoot it. Now, before I do this though, I might want to shoot it just at 0, just to see what that wind is actually doing. And then what I want to do is go to maybe a different stage, maybe it's a different direction to target, and see how what we did on this stage might translate into us thinking about how we're going to shoot that other stage. Different distance, different wind direction, and maybe even a different wind velocity by the time we get there. Then we'll have some final thoughts. So if you're ready to go, let's get to it. Well, the first thing we're going to do is assess the stage, read the stage brief. Now, I'm not going to shoot this stage. This is about wind, but we're going to read the stage brief. We're going to locate our targets downrange through our binoculars, right? And then we're going to use our Kestrel or whatever other device, and we're going to shoot those targets to get the direction of the targets. So the target direction here is 321 degrees. And so they are basically right out here, right behind me. Now, after that, we're going to take a wind measurement. So we're going to look at, we'll have our flag or look at other flags around just to get a general idea where the wind's coming from. Now I'm under here, so I've already taken a wind measurement out there, but I would bring my Kestrel out there to the wind. Don't get too far away because then you're going to be kind of off the line of your direction of target. But then I would hold this up, I would read the wind for a good 30 seconds, right? And you're gonna, like, I use this lanyard to kind of get the wind to blow it, right? So it's with the wind. Because if I were to do this, I'm aiming here, the lanyard's blowing this way. Or here, the lanyard's blowing that way. Well, that's not the direction of the wind. This is telling me the direction of the wind. Put it in your lanyard. I've actually thought of, because I don't really use the lanyard, putting a lighter piece of flag tape on here so I can just hold it up and it'll blow into me. Now with this, like if I do this right now, the wind is blowing from here, but what you don't see here is, like, I'm getting about see, now it says 5 o'clock, now it's 6 o'clock, so this wind is kind of shifting here. 6:30, here it is, and the wind is shifting. It's going to start coming out of the south here in a little while, but Right now I'm getting about a, maybe a 6:30, 7 o'clock wind, where 5 minutes before I was getting a 4 o'clock wind over here to the target. So if you look at the target, 12 o'clock, it's telling me I've got a 4 o'clock wind, which is right about here. And now it's telling me I've got a 6 o'clock wind. So you've got a variance here, guys, that you're going to have to take into consideration. The other thing we're going to have to consider here is the fact that I've got trees behind me here, right? And this is a ridge line going off into this direction. But on the other side of this ridge line, it's open until it gets down to those targets. So my point here is what I'm reading here isn't what's going on down there at the target. So let's get behind the scope. I've got my scope mate hooked up. I'm doing a review on this, and so far it's worked out great. Let's look down at the targets and see what the wind looks like down there. So this would be if we're looking through our binoculars for let's say. All right, so let's do that now. Okay, well, this is a great day for this video because I just filled out my dope card. I took a picture of it. I'm going to put it up right here. So as I'm here, I think it's going to be over here somewhere. But the funny thing is the second I got done filling this out, a gust of wind came up and the wind seems to have picked up. So let's look at the dope card and see what's going on. The first section there, the first upper left is the targets, right? So we've got target 55, target G, golf, and target 75. The numbers directly to the right of those are my elevation numbers. So when I move, if I'm going to dial, which I probably am, I would look at those numbers, look at the target, look at the number, dial, and now I'm there. Now, the three columns to the right of that are my wind brackets. So I've started at 4 miles an hour, right? And at 4 miles an hour, if I impact that 55, because we start on the 55 target, if I impact the 55 target, then on G, I should still be about that same windage. And then on the 750, it would be 1/10 of a mil more. That seems too low to me. If I ran my 6 mile an hour wind bracket, and that's what those numbers mean at the very top, 4, 6, and 8, I build 4 mile an hour wind brackets, right? Because unless we're shooting like the best in Texas, where the wind was 15 gusting to 25, generally out here it's like this. You'll have a 4 to 5 mile an hour bracket. I've seen some of the top shooters, they have 6 wind brackets. They're unbelievable. I can't do that much just because of me. In the upper right corner is the stage and the number of rounds in the stage. I fill this out. I fill the stage and the number of rounds out and the target order before the match. So when I get the book or the piece of paper, I fill all my cards out. So when I get to the stage, I don't have to worry about that part of it. Now, at the bottom is the shoot order. So this was a very complicated stage. You shot 2 off the bench at 55, 1 off the tank trap at G, moved back to the bench, shoot 2 at 75, back to the tank trap at G and 55, back to the bench, shot G twice, back to the tank trap, shot 750, back to the bench, and you finished up at double G. I will tell you right now, if I shot this stage, I would concentrate on the first 2, 3, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8. I would concentrate on the first 8, 9 shots, right? Because I will time out on this stage. I most likely would time out. And if you don't time out, you're going to be trying to move so fast, you're not going to either pay attention to this or you're going to be in a hurry and you're going to miss. That's just something of an aside to think about for new shooters and shooters at my level, right? I'm not the top 5% pro. Those guys can clean this stage because they're half my age. They're sharper. they're just a lot better. So they can do that. I can't, so I concentrate on what points do I want out of a 12-shot stage with a lot of movement. We've talked about this in other videos before. Okay, so let's do this. Let's get on the rifle. Let's start with one of these brackets. And the key here is if you shoot the bracket and you miss, you immediately look at your next bracket or the next one up, depending on how much you missed on that first shot. That's the adjustment, guys. And then you start following that bracket through the whole shot process. Okay, so let's look and see how that might work. One thing we didn't talk about, and I want to cover it really briefly, is do you dial or do you hold? Now that's a personal preference. I used to hold everything. And what that means is on my windage turret, I had always had 0 dialed. For a stage like this, if I got with the brackets and everything, I would simply hold. So if my initial hold was 2, I would hold 2/10 right, if that's what it is. And then when I got to the next target, if it was 4/10, I'd hold 4/10. I would not dial anything into the scope. I've since changed, and I like to start with the lowest windage that I have. So here, the lowest windage I have is 2/10, right? So I'm going to dial 2/10 right into the gun. And that just gives me, and then what you need to do, guys, is this. You need to forget that you did that, because now you're 0, right? The 2/10 is simply to make up for what you think the wind is going to do down there, right? I just got a gust. So that's the whole point, is once you dial it, don't get on your gun and go, okay, wait a minute, I've got 2/10 dialed, that means I'm done. No, forget it. You're going to put the crosshairs on the target, and you're either going to impact it or you're not. If the shot runs off to the right, that means you haven't given it, or off to the left, let's say, on a right to left wind, you haven't given it enough wind. You can do one of two things. You can hold from that point on, as if your scope, the windage was 0'd, or you can increase the windage on here, say another 2/10, right? Especially if you've got 2 shots on the same target. Then you can assess that second shot, and if it's centered, then you're good to go, right? Then you just move on down the road. Now, when I move, I am not adjusting the windage. So remember, on these brackets, if I'm going from, say, a 0.2, let's say it's a 0.2 to a 0.6, I have 2 dialed in the gun. What that means is, as I move out to distance, I don't dial the wind. I don't mess with that turret again. I simply hold 4/10 to get the 6/10 that I should be shooting. So you can either do it that way, or you can simply hold everything, put 0 in your windage, and you're good to go. And then you can just look at your card and go, I've got to hold 2/10, I'm going to hold 2/10, or left edge or right edge or whatever. That's the other thing you will hear is guys will say, I held right edge. Well, if you look at that target downrange and it's a mil wide, that's a pun out to my buddies, and it's a mil wide and they held right edge at that distance, that means they had 5/10 of a wind hold, right? Because it's 1 mil wide, half mil would be the center line. They held the right edge. That means that they were giving it 5/10 of wind. Okay, so I wanted to throw that in there, but now let's get behind the gun and see what we got. And we're going to come down. I've got 2 dialed in the gun, and we're going to, again, we're not running the stage. We're going to take it slow. See what we got here. So we're going to put one in. Let's just shoot that 2 MOA target. I'm going to hold right on the center of it. Impact. Now, did you see where that target went? Did you see which way it tilted? It tilted to the right, to the right. That just told me that I actually might have too much wind in the gun, right? So let's take another round. Let's take that out. Let's load another round. and let's shoot at the, that thing's getting in my way there. Let's shoot at that diamond. Now hold on the diamond here. That was dead center, it looked like, right? The other thing, did you see the wind coming off of that? There is a right to left wind, right? So now I've got to go to target G. So I'm going to dial 3-9 in my scope. I'm going to swing over to target G. And when I look down at my bracket, it's the first bracket. What that tells me is I'm still 2 tenths. I've got 2 tenths dialed in the gun. So let's see here. Hold center on G. Impact. So my wind bracket is looking good. Now we're going to go out to 750, which is 5-4. I'm going to swing over to the 750. So I'm just off center. Impact. So here's the point. Guess what just happened? Our wind call was right? Our wind call was right. So we used that first bracket. I went 2 tenths, 2 tenths, 3 tenths. So what did that tell me? It told me that it was a 4-mile-an-hour wind down there. I'm going to turn this off. We finish the stage, we come off the stage, and what do people ask? What'd you have for wind? Let's talk about how to answer that question. Just came off the stage, first thing. In fact, you're still picking up brass and people are going, but jam for the wind, right? And you're going to ask that too. Your correct answer is not, I dialed 2 tenths and it was 3 tenths at the far target. That is not your answer. Your answer is, it was a 4-mile-an-hour wind. Let's talk about why. I run this thing pretty slow, right? These rounds here run at about 2750. It's a 6-millimeter BRA. Other guys are running Dashers, they're running GTs, they're running 6 Creedmoors, they're running 6.5 Creedmoors with a 140 grain bullet, right? Not a Sierra Match King. They're running anywhere from, if it's a 6.5 Creedmoor, they may be running slower than this at 2700. If it's a GT or a Dasher, these guys may be up around 2950. The Mills answer does them no good. It's the wind answer, because they will then take that and say, okay, plug it into their Kestrel, validate what they've already done, right? It's not like they're asking you, I don't know anything, what's the wind? They've already done a lot of calculations. They're just validating that the columns they have, the brackets they have, kind of makes sense, right? So if they had a 4-mile-an-hour bracket up to an 8-mile-an-hour bracket or a 10-mile-an-hour bracket, they may say, good, I'll start with my 4-mile-an-hour bracket then. So that's how we should answer that question when we come off a stage. And that's how we should ask that question when someone else comes off the stage. What wind were you using? Now, the other part of that equation is I was using, like my wind was a 4 o'clock wind at 4 miles an hour, right? So you can give them the direction too. It was a 4 o'clock wind, 4 miles an hour. And you can ask them now, what was your wind and the direction? And there you go. So the next thing we want to do is go on to another stage, and perhaps it's a stage that isn't this far out or is that far out, and we want to look and see how wind will change. Okay, well now we were down at the end of this ridge shooting this way. Okay, so the camera's pretty much aiming in the direction we were shooting. Now we're on a culvert and we're shooting this way. So we are shooting about, actually in the Kestrel it came up to be about a 35-degree difference. So we've come in, when I just took my wind measurement, right? So right now I'm sitting here and I'm saying, and I already shot the target with the Kestrel, So now I open up my wind. I've got a big oak tree you can't see right here in front of me. So I'm sitting here with the wind, and I'm going to get my little lanyard to go into the wind, and now it is telling me that I've got 3 to 4 miles an hour from this direction. So think about this. We're shooting this way. The wind is coming from this direction, right? So what is that? That's about a 430 wind, right? In fact, that's what the Kestrel says. I didn't look at it before, but it says a 430 wind. So if I was going to do this, and I'm not going to build out the dope cart all over again, but if I was going to do this, I would take my bracket from 4 miles an hour to 8 miles an hour, which now gives me holding about a tenth right up to 4/10 right at a 490 yard target. My whole point to this is, does that make sense, right? Because this last group of targets we shot at, we had a 550 yard target, and we were holding about 2/10 left. Now, the wind seems to have picked up a little bit, but let's look through our scope, our camera here. I'm going to turn this thing on, and let's see what the wind's doing out there. So I'm going to run this. Now we're recording. I'll get down on the rifle, look at the target. We're going to shoot target Q, and let's look at the water. What's the water doing? Right to left. What's the grass doing? Not a whole lot. Let's come up above and look for a mirage. I see a little bit of a mirage moving right to left, okay? So I'm not sure that I believe the Kestrel when it's saying 1/10. I think I'm going to stick with what we had in the gun. I'm going to stick with 2/10 right, okay? And we're going to go with that. Now at this distance, I need to be about 2.6. Let's dial 2.6. And now let's take a shot. Let's see what happens here. Let's see what happens here. Okay. So I got 2.6 dialed in the gun. I've got 2/10 wind dialed in the gun. And let's see what we get. I'm going to hold dead center. Now, I have a feeling that my range is off. So let me pause everything and we'll come back to this. Let me revalidate that range. Yeah, I screwed up. I had 492 as the range instead of 592. So scope mate is still on. Now let's see what we get here. This should be a little closer. Dead center. Impact. Now, to me it looked like it was a little right. So I'm going to zoom in even a little more here. And let's send another round. I've got 2/10 dialed in the gun. Impact. Now, let's take 2/10 out of the gun. Now I'm zeroed as far as wind goes. Let's look. Ah, did you see where that missed? Okay, so if I was holding wind and I had started straight up, what would I do? Well, I would come back and say, oh, that was off left, so I'm going to hold right edge. Wow, that's off too. Guess what happened? The wind picked up, right? The wind picked up on us. I've got one more round. So what I would do is I would make a fairly bold move now, and I'd go to 4/10. Impact, okay? I just had a great conversation with a couple of top shooters. I mean, these guys win our monthly matches. They've won the 2-day matches. And the last thing we talked about was wind. And Chris Kutalik, who is a really good guy, and John and Delicati were here. I had a conversation with them, and Chris said this. He said, people need to understand that when you miss with the wind, you have to make a bold correction. Not 1/10, not 2/10. You've got to make a bold correction. The wind has picked up. So if I do this now, come down to the wind, come here. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I can tell you right now. Now it's reading me 5 and 6 miles an hour here with the tree in my way. Let me bring it down here a little bit. Yep, 5 and 6 miles an hour. So the wind picked up. This is going to happen to you right in the middle of a stage, just like it just did for me. I would have dropped those 2 shots, then I would have adjusted, then I would have moved on. Let's talk about how we would handle that at a multiple target longer range stage now. So this goes back to our initial conversation, right? And that was, I have a bracket, and I'll just stick with the 550 yard bracket of our first stage, because this was 592, close, but I would have had a similar bracket drawn up for this most likely. It might have been the 2 to the 4 to the 5 or 6, from 4, 6, and 800. If the wind picked up, I make that adjustment. I find that I'm at the 4/10 on the close target. What do? I look at my card. I'll put this up here on the screen. I look at my card and I go, oh, I'm now at the 6 mile an hour wind bracket, right? So then I would have impacted at 4/10, which I did. The next target G, I'd go out to 4/10, maybe even a little more now, but 4/10, adjust if I needed to, and then I would use that information. By the time I get out to the 750, I may be jumping to the 8 mile an hour bracket, or even between the 6 and 8 mile an hour bracket. These brackets are references. So as you start to see your impacts on the target, you've got to make that reference. That last shot we made on this looked like it was dead center, so 4/10 was the answer. If that's the case, and I'm going out another 200 yards with a target that's right behind that one, so same wind direction, same wind, I may, in my head, I'm going to say 200 yards, I'm going to give that another 2/10, and I'm going to try 6/10. It's just everything that you're trying to think about in your head and as you're shooting the stage. I'm still working on this stuff, and I'm trying to get better at it. So let's kind of recap what we went over here. So we went over, look, how to read the wind, right? You've got wind here, but you've got to look down at the target. You've got to see what you think is going on down there. Listen to your shooting buddies. If you're the 3rd or 4th or 5th shooter, great. Then you can start to listen to people. Remember the wind speed. We're talking wind speeds. I don't care what they dialed in their scope. I care that they shot a 5 mile an hour wind, a 6 mile an hour, a 3 mile an hour. That's what I care. And what direction did they calculate that it was coming from? I shot a 3 mile an hour wind, full value. That means if the target's out there, the wind's blowing right to left, full value means it's 3 o'clock. It's 90 degrees across that target axis, right? That's what we mean by that. So just look at that and try to figure all that out. Then you've got to build your stage card, your dope card for that stage, taking into consideration the distances, your wind values, right? Your wind columns there, and then your targets, how you're shooting the stage. Remember that stage back there was pretty complex. Generally on these culverts, we'll shoot 2, 2, 2, and then whatever, 2 and 2, something like that, or 3, 3, 3 for a 9-shot stage at maybe 1 or 2 targets. It's a pretty simple stage generally. When you're shooting it, remember what we did. We shot, we assessed where we impacted the target, right? Don't just say, I hit the target. Where did you hit the target? If you recall, on that first stage back there, when I hit the target, I made mention that the target went like this. That means I hit the right edge of the target. That means I may have had too much wind dialed in at 2/10 even, right? Because I hit the right side. So just stuff like that. And then finally, I'm using my cheat sheet here, right? Use what we learned to go on to that next stage. That's what we just did here. We had our dope from there, but different angles here, same wind direction, but now, or same wind velocity, maybe a little more, but then the direction changed. The thing about this is, if I turn this camera around, I'm gonna show you some stuff here. If I turn this camera around here, try to do it slowly. This is the ridge, okay? Everything out here is the ridge, and it comes all this way. Then you come here, and for 4 stages of what I just showed you, you're shooting the same direction. Now we come this way. And for the culverts, the bus, a PRS barricade down there, those 3 stages, all shooting the same direction, that way. At the very end, way up over here in these trees, you're shooting this way out into 800, 900 yard targets. So that's different. But the point is, if you look at this and all of this, once you get your dope for the wind, you've got about 7 or so stages that it's not going to change very much. Only the distance to the targets and maybe a little bit of direction to the targets will change. So that's what you've got to consider there. And all your targets are sitting out here, all out here and around that way. So that's basically what you've got here. Well, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this one. I wanted to just talk a little bit more about the mechanics of when you're shooting these stages and what to do for the wind and what to think about for the wind. I'll probably do even another video with some guys that I shoot with and how they manage the wind and assess it and all of that. But I just wanted this basic one here, so the next time you go to a match, if you're a newer shooter, you kind of understand what you're thinking about, what you're looking for, what you're listening for, and how to take that from stage to stage. Well, thanks for hanging in there, everyone. I really do appreciate it. The subs, the likes, the comments, everything. It really does make a difference. I'm glad we're building this community. And until next time, shoot straight.